Welcome to Build Your Art Business Artist Spotlight presents intuitive abstract painter Carol Gordon. Hello, friends. I'm Ting Yuen from Build Your Art Business. I'm an art business coach helping artists build your dream art business with confidence so that artists like you can live a creative life with financial and time freedom. Today in Build Your Art Business Artist Spotlight interview, I have Carol Gordon, an intuitive abstract painter, to talk about what inspires her to create and how she turns her passion into business. Hi, Carol. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited about this. Thank you so much, Ting.
Oh, excellent. Now I'm going to share your artwork on the screen and I'm going to talk about what I think about your work and then I'm going to give you center stage when the interview starts. All right? Now, this is beautiful Carol Gordon's artwork. It's watercolor and it's fluid, it's intuitively created. Isn't this just absolutely stunning? This piece is called Color in Bloom. And this is what I think of Carol Gordon's work. So Carol Gordon's watercolor painting is elegant, playful, and magical. She paints intuitively but skillfully. Although soft and fluid, her expertise directs the movement of her paint, guiding the flow with her intuition, creating blends of color intermingling into a dance. Having a piece of Carol's creation will breathe joy into your home.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Carol. All right, Carol, let's talk about you and your art, okay? So, my first question is please tell me where you're from and how does that affect your work?
Well, I was born in St. Paul, Minnesota. And when I was 6 years old, my parents moved our family to Los Angeles so that my father could become a filmmaker in Hollywood. And that's where I grew up in LA.
Wow, that's really interesting. And how does that affect your work where you grew up?
That's a really good question following that first one, because it gave me Los Angeles was not in tune or in alignment with my sense of self. Even though I wasn't very aware of what my sense of self was, I think it felt like water and oil. It was very extroverted and very commercial and very materialistic. And so I wasn't attracted to the film industry. It was very competitive and these other qualities I mentioned. So my first art medium was photography because I wanted to catch the moment. And then about 12 years later, when I was a young adult, I wanted to express my inner emotions, my inner world. And I found that photography wasn't allowing me to do that. I had also already started writing, and I was an avid journal keeper since the age of 10. So I had these three forms of communications that, became creative forms of communications, which I've kept my whole life.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, growing up, who is your biggest artistic influence?
Well, I think that I would say when I was young, it was photographers. So Margaret Burke White and Dorothea Lange are two that really stand out for me because they were interested in photographing people and the depth of life. And then when I took on painting, watercolor painting, Picasso and Matisse and Van Gogh and Munch, Edvard Munch,
Mm-hmm.
because they were expressing their inner world as not so much trying to, not replicating the outer world. They were inner expressions. And I was really drawn to that art, both the photography and the painting. It was validating.
That's good. And how long have you been creating art?
Well, I started seriously with photography when I was about 15. So that's when I would say, although my writing, like I said earlier, I started at 10. And then prior to that, at 5 years old, I was painting or coloring rocks. And so I think
So
my
cute.
whole life. Yeah.
Now, in one sentence, how would you describe your work?
Well, I think you did really well when you said, well, it's intuitive, abstract, expressionist and I think that relates mostly to the watercolor paintings. However, the photography, that intuitive part is also expresses what my photography is about. In other words, if I feel an affinity or feel connected with the season or with a scene I see, we have to stop the car, or I have to photograph it this day. So I'm really following what my inner world is telling me to do.
That's good. And that's a very feminine energy that you have, that I really appreciate because I do believe that creativity has a lot to do with female energy. And if you don't listen to that intuitive energy, your work is not going to be the same. It's like your work, you can tell that you spontaneously do it. Nobody, you're not planning. As you touch a paint, you can tell you're having a conversation with your paint on what to do next. I can definitely see that in your work. Now, what is your favorite medium? Would it be watercolor or do you use mixed medium?
I know it's watercolor, photography, and writing. Those are all my favorites. I
Okay.
couldn't choose between one of them. they each
Excellent.
have their own. They each have their own purpose, or
Yes.
yeah.
And when you do your watercolor painting, do you just strictly use watercolor or do you use different medium to mix with it?
That's a very good question. I've tried different mediums, but it doesn't work for me. It's too rational and
Hmm.
I'm trying to figure it out, and I can't work like that. But in the last couple of years, I've added, I would say, I call it scribble with a black ink.
Hmm.
Sometimes I start that way and I'll just um, follow what my inner world is wanting me to scribble. And then I ignore it and just go follow, okay, now where's the color that I need? And it isn't coming from my rational mind, it's coming from a feeling place. So I'm allowing myself to be drawn to a color and
Hmm.
then follow it. And then when that stops, I go to another one.
Hmm. And do you feel like there is a higher self that helps you to create as while you're creating?
Yeah, I never thought of it
Yes.
that way. Yes.
Yeah, because the way you describe your artwork, I know this is not the first time I heard you describe, but it really does sound like you have an inner goddess that comes to your studio and you're her vessel and you're painting that way. I do feel that way when I look at your work.
Thank you.
Now, with your artwork, what inspires you to create? Is it a story? Is it a quote that you read? Or is it just that energy that you have?
Just that energy.
Just that
And
energy.
every day I try to, well, I can't help but stay in tune with what I'm feeling and what intuition comes to me. And so I need to follow it, because if I don't, it doesn't work. Like
Mm-hmm.
all summer long, I kept feeling, oh, I've got to paint more. I got to paint more. And so I was doing that, and I was following a should or a fear that I'm not,
Mm.
and I didn't like the results.
Yes, it kind of kills the joy.
It did. I
And
was
that's
really
not good.
surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So, and were you schooled or self-taught,
I would
Carol?
say both, because I started my first schooling. Was in high school. I took a photography course, and I had a dark room at home. My father built, and then I went to the Banff School of Fine Arts, which is now the Banff Center, and I
Wow.
took a summer program in 1970, and that's where I met my husband. He was in the photography course too. And then in my late 20s, I went to the Vancouver School of Art, which is now Emily Carr, and that's where I took painting.
Okay. Wow, that is quite an extensive schooling of art, especially like the Banff School of Arts and Emily Carr. That is amazing. And you met your husband there. And I can see he's the love of your life because when you mention him, your smile just lit up and it's beautiful.
Oh,
And what
can
is
I
the mission behind your art?
say that again?
What is the mission behind your art?
To be true to myself and what my
Mhm.
inner messages are, and follow them and find the expression that they want for me.
That's lovely. And what would your inner messages be?
Well, just follow. What would my inner messages be? I'm not sure I understand that question.
Because when you said that the mission behind your art is your inner messages and follow your true calling, and therefore your inner messages, it could be like, I think, because I've known you for over a year, but I think your inner messages is really is do your work according to your energy and to listen to your body because you have always been very intuitive with whatever you do. And sometimes, it stops you from going forward because of the fact that you really trust yourself. And because you trust yourself, that is your biggest purpose. And therefore, your inner messages within yourself must be very much about self acceptance, about self acknowledgement. I would love to know more about your inner messages.
Okay, I get it. Thank you. Well, I think that kind of goes back to the second question: is how did where I'm from affect me? I found that Los Angeles for me was so fabricated, so
Mm-hmm.
like I think of the backlot. It was a facade. And I lived there for 11 years, and it was a very unhappy time for me. I have to be honest
Mm-hmm.
about that. First with me, which has taken me a long time to be honest about that, but
Mm-hmm.
I am now, and 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 now I'm sharing that. And so I think my inner message is to find the way that's an authentic way, and not to listen to the outer world of formula and template and shoulds. And the more I follow that spontaneous, authentic, process-oriented, intuitive, feminine, the more I feel grounded and comfortable. Whereas the other way was always would put you in the world of competition and counting numbers and not being real with people.
Yeah. Yes, it can definitely go the opposite way if you're not careful. And you're right. If you do follow your heart, which is a good thing. And I think by following your heart, you also do not overwhelm yourself. And your art has a very free-like style that you can tell that when you're in there, you're completely immersed in your work and you're present, which it's really helpful. Having that kind of very fluid, intuitive work is a great process for you. And can you explain to me how your creative process works? Like, how do you get your paper ready, and what kind of maybe you have a ritual that you like to share?
Thank you very much for asking this. I appreciate it. Yeah, I do have a ritual. So like I said earlier, if I go and try to paint, or if I feel I should paint, nothing works. Where if instead I'm feeling like this morning, I felt almost magnetized. I felt drawn to go to my studio. This is my office, and my studio's right next to it. And I felt drawn to go there. And then what I do, my personal approach is I go, okay, what size paper do I feel like working with today? But another way of putting it is, do I feel connected to? What size am I today? So I'll take a piece of paper, or I'll cut a piece of paper, and I'll put it down in front of me. So it's quite slow. I don't do this like rushing myself. There's no rush in it. And then I go, okay, which brush is calling me today? Or which brush do I feel connection to, or do I feel like working? So I pick the brush. And then I look at, and sometimes I do my journaling before and or after I paint, but because I want to stay in touch with what I'm experiencing. And so I then go, well, I look at the colors, and if one is popping out, or that sounds funny, but I go for the color, like yellow. I'm thinking, there's yellow. So I, add water and get some and start working. But I don't think about what I'm going to do. I just move with it. And then as soon as I'm finished with that color, it's like I give myself over to a process. It's an it's an unconscious process. That's actually it. And so then I move on to red, or I pick up a mark. I can't remember the Chinese, the little black where you dip in water and it's ink. It's black.
Chinese ink. Yeah.
So I use that too now. And so I might start like I said earlier, I might start my painting by working with my feelings in lines. And then I go for the color. And then you're right. It's a meditation actually too. And I realized that the word language has come as I've been preparing for this interview. the word language keeps coming up to me, that because I didn't feel part of the conversation in Los Angeles, or that my language or my words, I didn't feel like I was part of that culture, I realized that I was looking for language, and my photographs and my paintings and my writing is yes, is a creative expression, but it's also their languages.
Mm-hmm. It is. And I find that, do you find that when you're doing a lot of artwork, you kind of stay away from writing because, well, I don't know what it is, but when I write more, I can't paint as much. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure if you feel the same way.
I don't actually. In fact, if I I it seems that the two need each other. They're related.
Your paint is your vocabulary.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's good. That's good that you're able to balance both. But I think you're able to balance both because you're so intuitive with yourself. You listen to yourself instead of saying, like you said, should I should do this, I should do that, which is very unlike me. I have a whole journal of what I have to do all day long. So I need to be a little bit more Carol here. Okay. Now, what's your favorite part of being an artist?
Um, I think I wrote, let me see here. I get to be outside the societal rules oriented box.
Mm, mm,
That's
yes.
how I kind of express that. I get to be free.
Mm, I
Yeah.
love that. That's wonderful. What a great answer. That is amazing. You should really quote that and put it on your website. That is amazing.
Okay, well.
Okay. And what's the most challenging part of being a professional artist?
um yeah, the key word is professional part, because
Mm,
because I've been an artist, I would say, even though I didn't emphasize it, since I was a child. But the professional part I've come in and out of, but now I'm completely committed to it. And the biggest challenge is the steep learning curves of
mm,
that I need to climb for each area of building a art business.
mhm,
And the reason that I am building an art business, I'd like to say, is because I notice how artwork can accumulate, like massive, because I'm very prolific.
mhm.
and and I really don't want, I want it out there so that others can enjoy it, and also so that
Mhm.
my house isn't so full of all our artwork.
That's a good reason, Carol. Very good reason. Yes, and you have to share it because it's so beautiful. So why keep it to yourself, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Now, how do you define success as an artist, Carol?
Well, I have this great quote, and I've forgotten who it's by, but I've had it sitting at my computer for at least 30 years. Success is not to be pursued, it is to be attracted by the person you become.
Mm. Success is not to be pursued, but to be attracted to be the person that you become. Very interesting. Yes, success is in so many ways a different value for everybody. Sometimes it's a monetary thing, sometimes it's just really self fulfillment, right? Like for you, I would say your art is all about self fulfillment and you want to share it. And that's the wonderful thing about art is that it is that pure. The purity of creating is pure and it's beautiful. And we see that in your art, Carol. We really
Thank you.
do.
Thank you.
And do you have a network of other artists or mentors? And how do they support you?
Well, I haven't really focused on that, even though by being part of your program, it has allowed for a network and to connect with you and your support and your mentoring. My husband is my biggest support. We're each other's biggest support and honest with each other. So it
Mm-hmm.
isn't just a matter of, oh, yes, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's we can deal with each other's honesty about our work because it's coming from the heart.
Yes. And because you trust the person as well. And that is very important. Yes.
Yeah.
That's good. I find that my partner, Paul, is my support as well. Very, it's very interesting though, because I'm sure you'll probably find your husband opposite of you. But at the same time, there's that similarity to keep us together, and there's that opposite that we can learn from each other. So that is a very good way to have a kind of relationship that you are. There's a symbiotic relationship that you give and take from each other. That's wonderful. Currently, where do you sell your art?
Um, I sell it uh, through my exhibits, and I have one coming up through the whole month of November. There'll be one in our at the cultural center in our
Excellent.
town, nearest town, Pine Logs Cultural Center, and it's a members show, so there'll be, I think, 13 of us, and so that's one place. Online is my biggest focus to learn how to do
Okay.
that. This summer, I did summer markets for the first time in about 15 years, and I'm happy to say I did quite well this summer,
Excellent.
and I'm probably gonna, let's put it this way, I'm gonna consider doing it again next year. And also I have my art on display in a local restaurant, Blue Dog Cafe, and in our credit union, Kootenai Savings, and in Banff at the White Museum gift shop, and also in Crazy Souls locally, a boutique. And yeah, so and as I get another idea, and if it feels an affinity with me, I reach out. Oh, one more place is our local bookstore, which just opened up in the last year, and they're carrying our cards. So,
Okay. That's great. You have a lot of places to sell your work. That's very good. Now, in case you don't know, Carol Gordon lives in Invermere, BC. Okay, and that's where most of her work is, as well as the boutiques that carry her work. And when she did the farmers market, it was in Radium and Fairmont. Is that correct?
that's
Yes?
right.
Okay, good. Now, other than selling your artwork, do you have other revenue streams that you make money from your talent?
Not currently. I have taught over the years at
Mhm.
various times, but I'm not doing that now. Yeah.
Okay. If you could exhibit your art in whichever art museum and gallery in the world, which would be your dream destination?
Um, I'm most drawn to nonprofit cultural centers and
Hmm.
galleries. So I guess I would love to be in more of them in other communities.
Very good. Yes, you can do definitely a traveling show. That would be really fun to reach
Yeah.
all of them. That would be really good. And if you had the opportunity to talk to one of your favorite artists, dead or alive, who would that person be?
Um, well, the first person that comes to mind is Picasso. And not so much to ask him questions, but to just be in his presence. And I want to mention a photographer too. So I'd say Margaret Burke White or Dorothea Lange. And I want to tell them how much I admire them.
That is so lovely. That's lovely. And what are you currently working on or would like to share with your audience? Please tell us where people can find your work. I will also make a little a slide in the end to put your website on there. But please tell us what you're working on right now, and if you have anything that you'd like to share with your audience.
Thank you. Well, I mentioned it a couple minutes ago that about the upcoming show that we have. Both my husband and I will be in, and that's what I'm working on, is preparing for that show. And I want to mention, I realize I haven't included that. I've got this little saying that I have, which is, I photograph with my outer eye, I paint with my inner eye, and I write from my heart.
Mm.
And I think that really sums up my journey.
Now, Carol, with your artwork, I know you sell your work through your watercolor papers. And what other medium do you apply your artwork on?
Oh, I appreciate that question. A few years ago, my husband and I started trying out other materials like canvas and acrylic and metal. And about 2 years ago, I came across a wonderful company out of Montreal called Le Galeriste, and they partner with artists. And so my artwork is also now on clothing and home decor. And some of my paintings are prints on acrylic or canvas. And so we're starting to, both of us are starting to think about outside the box and not just framed artwork, but how else can we do it? So
Yes.
I enjoy this. And of course, the wearable art, also then I can expand to market through boutiques, and which I included at my summer market booth. Yeah. Thank you for
Yes, I
asking.
do find your art is really perfect as wearable art because, the fact that it's abstract and the colors are so beautiful. So it looks absolutely stunning on garments and
Oh, thank you.
pillowcases too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol, for giving us the opportunity to learn more about you and your artwork. Now, to view more of Carol Gordon's work, please stay tuned for her website link at the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching Build Your Art Business, Artist Spotlight, and this is Ting Yuen bidding you farewell. I especially want to thank Carol Gordon for joining me today to share her artwork and philosophy with us. To view more of Carol Gordon's intuitive abstracts, be sure to check out her website.